Well, hi folks, meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana Weather, bringing you the latest long-range update here. Thanks for watching, folks. It's been kind of a chilly day around the area here. Temperatures really only topped off in the upper 50s to near 60. Of course, the forecast was for the mid to upper 60s this afternoon, but the clouds hung on just a whole lot longer than expected. They're going to clear out some tonight. We've already seen a good deal of clearing around a good chunk of the area, but it wasn't enough to bring us up to the high temperatures of busted forecast, but that is the way it goes. A true fall-like feel out there today. Now, say goodbye to the rain chances for a few days there. We had a little bit of rain overnight last night. Not going to see any of that. It's just going to be a sun and clouds mix. A little bit warmer tomorrow as we go definitely into the 60s with some sunshine out there as well. And then we're talking about some warmth again next week. In fact, I'm talking 80s again in the forecast. Can you believe it? It's October. We're still fighting the 80s. We're going to get into that. First off, here we go. High pressure large and in charge over the area, and that's going to stick around for a little while. That'll retreat off as we head into the weekend. There's a small chance of some spotty showers there, maybe to our south on Saturday, but our better chance will come on Sunday. In fact, the model's now not really giving us a strong chance anyway. I went ahead and put it down to a 20% chance for some isolated stuff on Sunday. It's going to come with the passing of a front here kind of up to our north that's going to more just glaze us by than anything. Really nothing too much activity here to worry about. That's going to be pretty much it. The next time that we're going to see any rain, though, will be coming on Wednesday. And as you can see, here's a pretty potent cold front here. Pretty decent little low pressure system with cold front here. In fact, I suspect there will probably be some severe weather someplace for this. It's probably going to be up closer to the low. Some of the models want to have the low a little bit closer to us. If that's the case, we might get in on some of that severe action, but I think with it being so far north, probably not a whole lot for us to really look at worrying about at this point. But as I put this into motion, there comes a cold front. It's mostly a dry cold front until it looks like late Tuesday night into Wednesday. There we have some showers that start to build up along it. So that's something that we're going to have to watch out for. It doesn't look like this is going to be a significant event. The closer it gets, it may become a little bit more that way. So that's something that we'll watch. I do think there's a good chance that there could be some severe weather with this somewhere, but again, are we going to get in on that? Well, probably not the way things are looking at this point, but who knows? They may end up changing after that. And then as we go, sort of behind that, well, we're going to be facing more issues with that as well. So, and of course, this has decided that it's wanted to freeze up on me. So let me just sort of refresh this here, folks. Oh, well, no wonder. Let me get back here to where I was and get to the models. My apologies here, folks. Things decided to do that on me here. So here we go again, and there's that chances for Sunday. There's your dry front. There we go again. There's where we left off. There's your rain, and then after that, high pressure settles in for a few days. Notice though that you've got another storm system down to our south, and the models have been hinting that this comes to our south, and some of the models have been hinting this comes toward us. So we're really not quite sure yet. I've not put a great chance here on Thursday and Friday for rain next week for us. It does look like we'll run with about a 30 or 40% chance at this point, but there's a good chance that it may even move out of our area, and as this particular run shows, move up the coast and become a pretty potent little storm there for the northeast. That's certainly a real possibility there with it as well. It's just a little bit too far out to be seen yet. So right now, next Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, we'll have some rain chances in there, but it doesn't look impressive at this point. Hopefully, as we get a little closer to time, we'll kind of see what's going on. Then after that, you notice it's until late in the month beyond that before we see some more systems starting to roll in. Now, if we take a look at what's going on in the upper levels of the atmosphere, we can get a little bit more of an idea, especially about temperatures as well. First off, here's Hurricane Nicole. It was a pretty big impact on Bermuda today. It came on there. Came at them as a Category 4. I'm sure it did a lot of damage with that as well. Here's a trough that's moving through us, and that's what's responsible here for our cooler weather today. Kept the clouds around. We got this northwest flow going on, but this quickly retreats out of the area, and you notice we start to go, as we head into next week, into more of a ridge kind of situation build up again. I mean, look at this. The heat ridge is building back up, and look at this. You got a 588 decameter ridge sort of coming back in on us as we head next week. That'll translate easily into the low 80s again. And, again, this is late October we're talking about, low 80s. This is just ridiculous. This is, by the way, our normal high is slipped now to 69 degrees. We should not be in the 80s. In fact, we're going to be 15 degrees or so above normal from the way things look. So not unheard of, but certainly unusual kind of heat for this time of the year. We do have that sticking around for a few days, but there will be another system that dives down later next week. Will bring us a nice little cool down again. Sort of just depends again on exactly how deep this trough decides to go to the south. Remember, sometimes the GFS wants to dive these things down just a little bit further than they actually do. We've seen that for the past few months at doing that, so that may not be as deep of a trough as what this is seeing, which could put us back in the rain chances rather than where the rain chances are going. So there's a lot to look at with this, but regardless, we'll cool down for a few days before, you guessed it, there we come back into more of a ridge pattern here right behind it. It's sort of, this suggests it flattens out a little bit, and we have another trough behind it to end out the month. So it's going to be kind of an ups and downs. In fact, you can see that as we look at the temperature anomaly as well. We're much cooler than normal right now. As we head into the next few days, don't think that's going to happen. The nation is going to get quite toasty again. And again, as we head into those 80s next week, we're going to be, just well above normal. There, that trough starts to dig in later on next week. We get into some cooler weather again, but again, don't get used to it behind it because that warmer weather comes. So it's just going to be an up and down kind of pattern. And really, I think that's what we're going to see. Even as we head into November, I'm looking for a sustained cool down. I don't see a sustained cool down as yet. As we just take a look at our Bering Sea rule, remember, here we are in the Bering Sea. Here's Alaska. Here's the Aleutian Islands. And remember what happens in, what happens here in the mid-level jet stream is kind of a representation of the configuration that we will see in the United States about 20 days later or so. And so here we are, the last of the Aleutian Islands, Indiana, sort of right in here. And what we've got going on as we head, 120 hours into this model from today, we got another ridge starting to form in here. And of course, behind this, we've had a little bit of a trough, but we got a ridge here starting to form again. So guess what? It's going to be an up and down kind of thing again. That lasts a few days. This is going to take us into the beginning days of November. It's about the 7th through the 10th, right around in there in that time frame. Then look, here in the modeling, there's another big storm, another trough that comes through before another ridge comes into it again. So again, it's just kind of an up and down battle that we see in here, and I think that's kind of what we're going to be in really for a good little while, the way things look to me. Why are we in such of a battle right now between this ridge? You just think about this. Let me go back here. What do we got going on right now? Well, we've got this ridge of high pressure building up, this southeast ridge. Sometimes it's over here, sometimes it's over here, but why exactly do you have that? Well, again, that's one of the products of a La Nina, and La Nina is really starting to develop. In fact, the La Nina watch has been reissued by the National Weather Service again. There's your La Nina starting to develop down here. It looks like it could be a little bit stronger than we previously anticipated. It was looking, in fact, the National Weather Service had canceled the La Nina watch. They had said only a 40% chance of it developing. They've now upped it to a 70% chance of development over the next 3 months here. And basically, the modeling has changed a little bit. You see that we have cooled down. There's the cooler waters up in there. If we take a look over here, this is the La Nina index. Here's your negative 0.5. You got to stay below negative 0.5 for 3 consecutive months in order to be classified as a technical La Nina. You can see we've been cool for a good little while here, but look at this. We've dipped up above it a time or two, but we have been consistently since the beginning of October below that anomaly. We're basically right at the threshold of it right now. Are we going to go above it, or are we going to keep going down? We'll have to see as time goes on in there. We're just really going to have to see. But the modeling is suggesting that we see La Nina-like conditions. Here's the latest from the CFS model. Not the most reliable model in the world, but we'll just take it for what it's worth, but here's what it suggests. Here we are. The black line is the analyzed up until today, and look at this. All these individual colored lines right here are different ensemble members, by the way. The black is the mean of all this. This is what we really want to look at, and just notice here we dip down, and here's your half-degree line right here, so we are staying in La Nina-like conditions, it says. All the way, here's January of 2017. In fact, you're not getting out of here until you're in maybe, say, February or March, right in here before you're coming out of it. So we would be in a La Nina, a weak La Nina, not a strong one, less than between 0.5 and 1 on the negative side is what we would consider a weak La Nina. But La Nina, nonetheless, a formal declaration could indeed be made in a few months with this. It does not look like it's going to be a long, prolonged one, because we come out of it and come back up to neutral conditions as we head maybe into March or so, according to this model. It's not the only one saying that. The Australian model, the POAMA, suggesting similar things. You notice they've got the line down here at negative 0.8. Australia has a little bit of a different definition than what our National Weather Service do. Our National Weather Service includes it at a negative 0.5, but that would be kind of right up in here. And what you can see is the model in here, the mean of their ensemble members here too, would keep us in a weak La Nina situation here until, say, maybe February or March as well. So it's actually in pretty decent little agreement here. Maybe just not quite as extreme on it as what the American CFS, but again, it's showing some decent agreement. So basically all this means La Nina is looking like it's going to kick into high gear. That will have a pretty big effect on us too, by the way. That's already affecting our weather. That's why we see this persistent southeast ridge. That's a traditional feature of a La Nina, and this is going to be the kind of a situation that we go in. In fact, if you want to take a look at what's going to go on in the winter, in my opinion, I think a pretty good example of this would be, let's just go with what the ECMWF is suggesting here over the next little bit. Let me back this up here. So we got, this is pretty much what I think is going to happen, or at least a typical representation. Here you have the southeast ridge. It's going to come and go this winter, and this is what's going to happen. You're going to see these troughs start to dig in pretty deep and retreat. What's going to be replaced by it? A ridge. And so that's really what we're starting to see in the modeling. That's pretty common in the modeling. In fact, we can go back to the GFS and see pretty much the same kind of thing here. There's that ridge, and then it's replaced by a trough, and then we're starting to ridge out back again, an up and down kind of thing. I don't think it's going to be where the southeast ridge hangs on the entire winter long, but it's going to be there, and it's going to be a persistent feature that we're going to have to fight. Now, what exactly does this mean? I discussed it in my preliminary winter forecast a little bit. If you go to southernindianaweather.com, hover over winter and click on the preliminary winter forecast link here, sponsored by Remote Eyes, you'll be able to give them, by the way, you'll be able to get a little bit of idea here. It's a pretty technical discussion here, but if you're willing to read, you'll learn certainly a lot about this. And as you look through this, one of the things I discussed here was the analogs. So one of the things we discussed, and by the way, I apologize if you heard barking in there. My dogs went haywire. Somebody was at the door. But one of the things I discussed there whenever we looked at the analogs is what could potentially happen. If you go with neutral winters, with the kind of what we're seeing right now with the warm blob of everything still out there, which refers to this up there. If you went with that, then you get a pretty cold winter coming on. But what happens if you get a little bit of a stronger La Nina coming on, a weak Nina, grant you, but stronger meaning stronger than no La Nina, all right? Then you get kind of this configuration going on. You get where you got that persistent southeast ridge, and you put Indiana right here on the battle zone. The persistent cold kind of stays off to our north and the west a little bit under that kind of a setup, and we get on the battle zone here where we could have some potential winter impacts, or we could also be potentially a little bit in the warm. It does keep us on the cool side of normal under this sort of a situation. However, it keeps us in a battleground, and that's actually what we see even in the modelings right now, up and down, up and down. But I take the analogs with a grain of salt. They're an idea. Folks, my final winter forecast is coming out on November the 5th. Again, you can kind of read through this and get some early winter thoughts. One of the things I discussed, though, was that it would be a slow start to winter in December, that this would be pretty warm. Under a La Nina like we're at right now, I may need to increase that warmth up just a little bit, in my opinion. I will tweak these maps a little bit for the final forecast, so that you are aware of that, though. But as we head later on, that's whenever we could be into the colder kind of things. Don't think it's going to be cold and snowy the entire time. That's why I've said cold snaps. Do think there's some risk for some storms, winter storms to come along this winter. La Nina can certainly enhance those, but cold air is always an issue with this. So it's something that we're going to have to watch out for. And if we end up having a persistent southeast ridge, well, it's going to be one of those situations where we're going to be fighting how much cold air we could get into those storms around here. So a lot to work out, but on November the 5th, I will have my final details out. But again, you can you can go to southernindianaweather.com and be able to click on the preliminary winter forecast to learn a little bit more about it if you're interested for now. Also there, while you're checking out that, you can check on the 10-day forecast. Again, cool for the next couple of days, folks. We warm up a little bit on Saturday, but the 80s return for Sunday all the way through Tuesday before that trough starts to dig in next week and we cool down, and it's going to be wash, rinse, and repeat. Could we even see 80s in November? I doubt that at this point, but 70s are certainly a real possibility, which is way above normal for November too. Doesn't look like this up and down pattern is going anywhere anytime soon. Thanks for watching.